Welcome to the KC Ingram Show, where we break down the headlines, ask the tough questions, and bring you real conversations that matter right here on the Treasure Coast and beyond. If you like the show, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm Casey Ingram. Let's get into it. Sean Reed is a lifelong Martin County resident, small business owner, and recently appointed mayor of Stuart. Elected in the City Commission in 2024, Reed campaigned on slowing overdevelopment, protecting Stuart's small town character, and increasing transparency in local government. He has voiced concerns about traffic, density, and impacts to the St. Lucie River while advocating for tougher scrutiny of major development projects. Prior to becoming mayor, Reed served on Stuart's Community Redevelopment Board and has frequently aligned with commissioners such as Chris Collins and Laura Giobi on issues involving development oversight, transparency, and skepticism surrounding aspects of the Brightline station proposal. Welcome to the show, Mayor Reed.
Whoa, hello.
Hello. You were just appointed mayor during what some consider one of the most contentious periods in recent Stuart history. What's your message to the residents who feel the city's been deeply divided?
I talk to staff continually throughout the city, whether it's at City Hall. I think everyone's happy. In my opinion, I think it typically comes from two currently elected officials that have said it on the dais, but have not given exact examples. They just say the statement, but they don't back it up with anything.
And a lot of people were told that Stuart is in a crisis under former Mayor Chris Collins. Do you believe the city was actually in a crisis?
No, I wouldn't say in a crisis. I would say it was maybe potentially how we did things, and they just weren't used to that. They were just used to people just saying yes to everything and how can I help you kind of thing instead of questioning things or representing their constituents. I call it the donor class. Some people call it something else. I think everybody's important though in the city, regardless of how they vote, what they believe in. If they donate to my campaign or not, I'll still talk to you.
And now that a new city manager has been hired and government continues functioning, do you think some of the rhetoric was exaggerated?
I think so. I mean, whether or not a city manager got fired, quit, something suddenly expected happened in their life, if the city is governed by one individual, that's a problem in itself then. So I've talked with our interim city managers and current city manager, and I believe in like cross training department heads. So if something like this did happen again, we would have someone that could step into the role, or maybe even an assistant city manager potentially. I can tell you currently we're saving $200,000 a year off the pay of prior city manager and prior finance director alone. But that they were just there for years. That's all. But
Explain that a little bit more, that there's a savings of 200,000.
so the salary, the prior city manager, I believe, would have been at like 285,000. The current city manager, I believe, is around 190, I think it is. So we're saving there just because it was a new hire and stuff. You had someone with prior years experience. Everyone thought it was detrimental if someone didn't know the history in its entirety. The problem is if someone knows the history, they can also control the narrative. So some things may or may not have been, full information. And I think that was always a problem. So what I noticed is it was passed around between certain departments or certain individuals. So the story would stay the same, but the facts might have changed a little bit. And that's my opinion.
And it's interesting too, with the narrative saying the city's in a crisis and dysfunction. It brings up the question then, if one person can either, make the city work or not, what's the point of even having a commission if that were to be the case?
Well, and that's been my issue the entire time. So in order to understand, like, it took me a little bit to wrap my head around it, but you have us 5 elected officials that are elected by the public. And then you have your 2 chartered positions, and then you have your department heads. That's how it's structured. So department heads wouldn't necessarily talk to their elected officials because whether or not they trusted us, we were temporary employees, they kind of just got stuck in that area. And in my opinion, they might have been afraid to voice their concerns to us over potential of losing their job, their career, being demoted. This is my personal perspective on how it works. And that's how I felt that it was. And during the entire process, some people were honest. Some people didn't want to throw someone under the bus, but it's government. I'm sorry, that's the way government's supposed to run. You're supposed to be open and transparent, even when difficult things need talked about. That's the whole point of the sunshine laws and open government.
And what do you say to residents who feel that certain elected officials were unfairly vilified simply for asking hard questions?
I listen, we're not always right. We're human beings at the end of the day. Our job is to research things, right? Ask questions. And this has always been like, this goes back to my argument with government. We're not, in my opinion, always given all the information. I believe information is withheld to control the narrative or the outcome. And unless I go and do my own research on something, I might not get a full answer, I guess you could say. And I found that out multiple times that it happened. I've only been here since August of 24, and I could go back to multiple examples where it had happened, whether it was through agenda items, through meetings, through presentations. It happens, and I just don't agree with it.
The one glaring example that stood out to me, of course, because I follow it so closely, is the Brightline issue. And when the contract came in front of the city commission right before you were elected, none of
Mhm.
the commissioners had seen it. It had not been released yet. And they voted 4-0. Commissioner Collins was absent that evening to approve the contract that was never presented to them. So, that's where I myself as a resident, and I expect my elected officials to at least know what they're voting on and have reviewed it and do some own research.
Yeah, and it happened in the county as well. Me being who I am, if there's something controversial, like the chicken stuff, I don't think that's something that would wait until August for an elected official to be in that seat or potential flipping seats. But if there was something as large as Brightline, I would have held that off. Personally, I would have done that. I can't speak on behalf of other members, but that's what should have been done, especially because there were so many seats that changed in the city and the county. It's inappropriate if you want. Yeah, it's inappropriate. That's the easiest way to sum it up.
And of course, speaking of Brightline, can't miss the biggest news of the week and possibly one of the biggest bombshells of the All Aboard Florida Brightline saga. Mayor Reed, you just released a letter on social media from FEC, Florida East Coast Railway. And that letter, appears to clearly state objections to a passenger station in Stewart. Were you surprised by the strength of that language from FEC?
I was, and FEC knew it was going to hit the news regardless once we received it. So I'm sure some information was probably held back as well. That letter, whether or not elected officials knew about it or not, Brightline knew about it. And if you read the letter, it alluded to that Brightline was well aware of not only the train bridge, there's other issues that Brightline has not done to meet FEC requirements. I'll go into details once I have the information on it. I'm still waiting on some documents that I'll have. So I don't want to elaborate on what's been spoken about, but there are other things besides that letter.
Do you believe the public was given the full picture about the relationship between Brightline and FEC from, the county or city?
Absolutely not. And whether or not Brightline withheld that information, that's very possible as well. They play political games as well. I mean, there's multiple details that I've pointed out where they do it, but
I guess my question, Mayor Reed, and I wonder about is the fact that if folks don't understand it, Florida East Coast Railway is a separate entity from Brightline now. Florida East Coast Railway does own the land and they do own the tracks. Brightline has a lease to run on the tracks. So, in order to put, for example, a station in Stewart, you have to add tracks. So, I'm wondering did anybody, commissioners, staff at the county, talk with who actually owns that land where they want to expand the tracks? I'm just wondering if that due diligence was done.
I mean, if I was making an assumption, I would say yes. I would say our city administrators would have known and county administrators would have known during conversations with Brightline on their Zoom calls, the Teams meeting, private phone calls. And that's where they were this is my perspective on how things have unfolded. I think Brightline was trying to secure the funds and then they were going to work the details out after because then they could say, hey, we have the money. We're good to go. We can pay for it. Let's work out all the little fine details. That's how I would picture it went down.
Should Martin County continue pursuing tens of $1 million in grant funding if the railroad owner itself has objected?
I wouldn't want to do business with someone that misrepresents information.
Do you believe taxpayers deserve to see every communication between Brightline, FEC, Martin County, and the city regarding the station?
Yeah, if you're spending almost $100 million on a capital improvement project, that's an easy answer, yes.
And do you happen to know who knew what and when?
I don't know if elected officials knew for sure. Some people seem to forget when questioned. whether past or current ones. They for some reason can't remember all of a sudden. But I would like to think that these people know. They've been in these positions for a very long time. They have a lot of connections. And I don't know why they do it. I don't know if they justify the positions, the growth of the county, if they try to just appease people. And if you write too many checks you can't cash, you end up in the negatives. And that's what's happened with politics in this county.
And country.
Yeah.
Do you believe elected officials had access to information the public did not concerning Brightline?
Yes, I would say so. Whether or not they spoke about it or not, I've been very open. I've seen Brightline specifically. I've seen assistant county administrators misrepresented at the city one day and then, present other information to all the answers the next day at the county. And I've pointed that out on my page.
You have. You have been very open and transparent with the public for sure. It's refreshing to see, by the way. Would you agree that, or
Hmm.
would you support a public workshop specifically dedicated to Brightline communications and agreements so the public understands what's going on?
The only way at this point, if I was to support anything with Brightline, one, it would have to be a referendum. And two, I think they would have to lay everything out on the table and be honest, which might be difficult for them.
And one more train question, then we'll
Yeah.
move on. If FEC is saying no, why do you think the majority county commission are still demanding taxpayers to say yes?
Well, sometimes when you're wrong, some people double down.
All
I
right.
can admit fault when I'm wrong. I
Right.
will absolutely apologize on the dais. I've done it more than once when I've been wrong or inappropriate to some. Yes, I can take the higher road and apologize instead of doubling down.
So, Mayor, residents are repeatedly, and we spoke about this at the beginning of the interview, hearing that the city is dysfunctional and in a crisis. Yet, roads are still paved, utilities still run, permits still are getting issued, and now a new city manager has been hired. Is the narrative overblown?
I think it's overblown. The agenda that I'm seeing pushed now is they want professionalism and this is the opposing team that I went up against and Chris Collins went up against. And it's funny when they talk about the professionalism and how the city is in disarray. These are the same group of people that have death threatened me, tried to intimidate me, tried to extort me. It's so diabolical on how I'm personally treated. I think it's comical at this point. I laugh about it because I'm a phone call away. Whether or not someone agrees with me or not, like I said before, I will still answer your phone call. I will educate you. And if you're one of those people to where someone could do so wrong and they're still good in your eyes, I can't help you anyway. I have to move on at that point.
I
So,
appreciate.
and I don't think people are not going to like me maybe for how I deliver things or maybe by me bringing things to the board that's uncomfortable or making hard decisions, but I'm not going to be faulted for anything that I put out as far as information because it's truthful, it's accurate. Just because you don't want to hear it or see it, it's not going to stop me from doing it for the public.
And I appreciate you saying that, just letting folks know what's going on behind the scenes. You can't scream unprofessionalism and dysfunctionalism. And, at the same point, what you just described, you had death threats. And I know that Commissioner Collins had to call the police, on occasions as well and had some other issues. It's just the personal attacks are shocking.
Yeah, they are. And it's the saddest thing about it is these are from people that are 2 to 3 times my age and they call me very immature and they call me a punk. I think I'm very professional when I'm in the public eyes. When I'm on my personal time, I'm going to have as much fun as I can and I'm going to be that adult child. I'm a preschool owner. I'm here to have fun in life and do things that I feel are appropriate, and that's my view on that.
So is the disagreement inside City Hall, is that being confused with dysfunction?
I don't think there's some big divide in City Hall. I think sometimes when you see political changes from elected officials, staff might, become uneasy, but this commission rolled back the millage rate and was still able to get 4 fire rescue employees. And there was one elected official. Campbell Rich didn't support that initiative. So I don't know if he supports first responders. I don't know what his thought process was. If he thought these employees or raising the millage was the best choice, I don't know. Sometimes he withholds information and is not comfortable talking about it. And that's tough from an elected position. You have to do it.
The only time you can speak about it as a group is at commission meetings, agended meetings because of the sunshine laws.
Correct.
Now, is asking difficult questions now considered more of an obstruction in local government? Are you getting that feeling at all? Because you have been one of them that's asked those difficult questions.
I mean, I think as long as you do it appropriately, which I'd like to think I do it appropriately. I don't think I mistreat any staff members. Anyone can feel free to go down to City Hall and ask them. I've had nothing but positive feedback with me being there. I think because I'm a normal person. I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not.
Do you worry there is growing hostility towards commissioners who challenge staff recommendations
From staff or from the public?
from public?
From public, I don't understand why they would do that. I think they should be supportive of that, right? If we're asking the difficult questions or the uncomfortable questions, to me that's appropriate. I've seen stuff in agenda packets. I saw a social security number that wasn't blanked out in an agenda packet. I notified the city about that and it was corrected. And I can tell who reads agenda packets. And I pointed it out on the MPO. It wasn't even publicly noticed, the meeting. That's how I know nobody checked the agenda and the website. And you can tell when you're sitting on the dais, and I've been on both sides. I've been in the public and the dais at this point from elected. You know who reads agenda packets. If you're asking some basic questions that are clearly in the agenda packet and they're clearly laid out, if you know how to navigate like site plans, civil plans, anything along those lines, you're going to find the information and you know who does their job and who doesn't. And sometimes I think I put a lot of time and effort in, maybe sometimes too much, but that's why I'm here.
Appreciate that. Do you think Stewart's been pressured by larger county level political and business interests?
Absolutely. And that's how I know I'm destined for greater things with my life. Because for these state and county or federal elected officials, the argument that I have constantly heard is you think you're going to go to Washington or you think you're going to go to Tallahassee and argue with these people where they're going to make your life a living hell. They're going to take out appropriations on your municipality. Well, if that's the case, don't tempt me with a good time and I'll see you in Washington or Tallahassee maybe one year.
And actually, that's one of the narratives that are out there is SB 180 was passed because of the city of Stewart. What do you say to that?
Absolutely not. It has nothing to do with this city or county. Just look at who presented it. That's a given, right? But it's an easy argument, right? If it can fit your narrative, it makes you look better. But that's not the truth. You're just misrepresenting things on a state level. That's all you're doing. You're misinforming voters, and it's wrong, and it shouldn't happen in politics.
Can you give listeners a quick update on where we stand with SB 180? Because the city of Stewart was one of quite a few municipalities that paid the $10,000 to try and, oppose SB 180 being forced on our local communities.
Let's see. The last thing I have is there was an expedited motion for a preliminary injunction. That's the last that I've heard from our city attorney. It says, let's see, the judge reversed. I think he meant to say reversed. The judge reversed the ruling on the motion to dismiss. That means that she will be issuing a ruling in the near future. The lawyers will keep us updated. That's the last email that I have from our legal team.
Okay. Now, how independent is the city commission when major projects are pushed by the county leadership and influential stakeholders?
Like, give me an example, I guess.
Well, of course, the Brightline would have been a really big example. That was definitely being pushed from the county. And, before you all were elected, the new commission turned over, you and Laura, it was being pushed.
Yeah,
through.
I think it was collusion between the city manager and the county administrator. Obviously, they have to communicate. They were friends. They knew their job very well. And that's where institutional knowledge comes into play. And it's a cat and mouse game. It's someone like myself that's a normal person that's trying to learn the system and unpack it. It takes a little bit of time. I've only been here for a year and a half, and we've had some sweeping improvements, in my opinion.
And you just also had another lengthy discussion that really, I think, turned out hugely favorable for, honestly, the county and the city. But that's the fire department consolidation discussion,
Yeah, and that was an uncomfortable conversation as well. And by the way, if Martin County Fire Rescue is watching, I'm not trying to play political games as their chief called it. I'm not sure if that was directed towards myself or the prior mayor. I'm not here to play political games with anybody when it comes to life safety. I think our medical team was amazing in the presentation they did. And for any voter or resident that lives in the city or the county, you should really watch both because you're going to see the county come from political, right? And you're going to see the city come from strictly science and data-driven presentations. There was zero political agenda that happened at the city when we did our presentation.
It was an impressive presentation.
Very
It really
impressive.
was.
And it's the same one that Palm Beach County has as well. And look at their level of service for the residents. We pay, like I said, so much in ad valorem taxes. You want the best of the best. You don't want political motivations. We don't need union presidents or unions doing a disservice by being politically motivated against one another.
Well, speaking of that, not the city, but at the county, you will see the firefighters out campaigning behind commissioners. And if you
Yeah.
follow those votes, you'll see the commissioners' vote will be for the firefighters.
Yeah, to me, it's inappropriate. I don't think they should be involved, but that's my personal opinion. And I think that's where you can absolutely have campaign reform on a local, state, and federal level if you have elected officials that are willing to do the hard work, stay out of politics, present the information. But I proved during campaign time that endorsements don't matter, and neither does money.
You truly did. And on the commission level, so did Eileen Vargas. As a matter of fact, she was outraised by, about $130,000. And
It's astonishing. It was probably I was outraised 4-1.
you were
And
outraged.
I was up against every endorsement you can think of,
You
and
were.
there was even state endorsements,
You were.
and I think even there was federal endorsements as well, which is astonishing.
For a city election. Agree. Do you think that residents are losing trust because too many decisions appear prearranged before public meetings?
So to give some more perspective on that, I was on the Board of Adjustment, and Chris Collins had appointed me on there. So him and I had multiple phone calls. I campaigned, talked to him all the time. Once I won, he got blocked. He's finally unblocked, by the way, and I can talk to him now. And it's an easy argument, but Chris knew where I stood on a lot of things because I actually had to educate him, and we had a lot of conversations back and forth while I was campaigning just to bring him up to speed on issues that we should be going after. It didn't happen after I was elected, and it's mind blowing, right? And you can tell when you watch the meetings, and this is where I do have some regret in the way I do things. But if I can't go to a city manager or a city attorney and have conversations with them, what do? You throw it out in the public. And that's exactly what I did. And if you watch any of the meetings where it happened, you can see it was kind of in disarray. And those are my regrets. But what do? I can't go talk to another elected official behind the scenes.
You can't. And Sean, I want to bring up something too that folks maybe don't know when you were elected. You're young. You're in your 30s yet. I'm not sure your
Yeah.
exact age when you were elected, but
I'm 36. I was 34 when I was elected.
34. First time you ran for public office. And I know I was astonished myself on the reaction of you winning from, let's say, those that opposed you. The next day, you were barraged with a ton of public records requests. You hadn't even been in the
Yeah.
office for, a day yet. And they were
Yeah.
trying to nail you thinking, aha, we're going to get him for communications. And
Yeah.
instead of the congratulations, you won fair and square. I wish you well. You were welcomed by, very unprofessional behavior, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
it's astonishing. And then it didn't let up because you just said you've had death
Well,
threats and whatnot.
that's where it brings up the whole question. So when I won, I was 34 years old. And yes, I am a preschool owner, and I'm very proud of being a preschool owner with my family. I'm proud that I get to educate and inspire the next generation. So hopefully they can be like me. They can step up to what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. I love what I do. I think I have more employees than probably any city or county elected official has ever had, maybe in its entirety here. I don't know it all. I'm not perfect, but I strive to understand things with an open mind. And it's not just preschool that I deal with. I actually read P&L statements. I do business things. I do preschool things. I do education. We do maintenance and repair. We're doing with legal issues. It's a very well-rounded individual, and I have a computer background as well. It's just, I have a good moral compass. I can go on and on and on, but I'm very humble about my experience. I'm very humble about my ability. And I think I can go toe to toe with the best in the city, the county, this entire country. I feel very confident in my ability to do anything in life.
And since the new city manager was hired under the current leadership, we'll move another topic here. What
Yeah.
qualities made this the right city manager for Stuart?
He was one, it was kind. There was a lot of kindness. His resume was just so impressive with the military background, and he spoke about orders and doing what was right and the moral compass. His life goal was to be a city manager. I think you can be taught and learn how to be a city manager if given the correct opportunity and you have the team behind you that's pushing you. it's just been a nice blessing. I love speaking with the new city manager. His name's Mike as well. It's just been a great experience. I think staff are very happy, and we'll see how it is moving forward. Time will tell if we made the right decision or not, but I feel confident with my decision. And, I was on the screening committee and I was fair and balanced. I had Dan Hudson as there, which is an ex-city manager. He's well respected in the community and being non-biased and stuff. I would like to think from both sides. And there was other people in the community as well. I was even questioned on that. And like I said, we had one, Campbell Rich didn't even want to say who his pick was. And that's difficult. If you don't think we're making the right decision, well, pony up and say who the right pick is. That's your job.
I was surprised he withheld that as well. He didn't support the decision, but yet he didn't say who he felt would be a better fit. So that it's
Correct.
unfortunate for the residents to not know what he was thinking there.
It's a disservice to the residents. That's exactly what it is.
How is the morale of the staff right now?
I think it's great. Like I spoke about earlier, everyone that I've spoken to, they've been super happy. And I talk to people from public works to utilities to the development department to the finance department. And unless they're not giving me all the information on how they truly feel, which I think I've earned the respect and hopefully with my kindness and stuff with them, and I apologize when I'm wrong. I don't know. I think they're happy.
Now, how do you balance the trust in the staff while still encouraging commissioners to independently verify the information you're given? So, previously I'm taking staff's recommendation. You can tell it's rubber stamped and not researched, but you have encouraged, no, it's our job as commissioners to research these agendas and ask questions. Do you get any sense that the staff may be offended if you don't agree with their recommendation? And how do you balance that?
I've only ran into that with one staff member that went to school for a specific degree. So in their mind, they were always correct from their lens. But I saw it from a normal lens or something that I was maybe interpreting. My opinion is land development code is not that hard to understand. And this is mainly coming from the development department. I think it's very easy to understand once you can wrap your head around it. And that's something that I am very good at. I do like our staff presentations. They have been tremendous. Like between Michelle, Chris McCrane, Jody Kugler, Lou, they try their best with the tools that they have. And our staff presentations have gotten much better, in my opinion. My personal opinion is I don't think staff recommendations should be on there at all. It should be they meet requirements or they don't meet requirements. And then let's see what requirements that they're talking about that they don't meet. Is it appropriate what they're asking for the relief or for the change to deviate from land development code? That's really what it comes down to.
Now, do you believe that transparency failures damages public trust more than the disagreement itself? It's a tough question, but lack of transparency, is that more damaging than the disagreement itself?
What do you mean by the disagreement? Like the disagreement of transparency?
So, yes, disagreement, transparency. Let's look at it. It's the biggest topic right now, Brightline. There's a
Yeah.
disagreement on whether or not there should be a station in Stewart, but it was being pushed through without transparency. So, is it a bigger failure for damaging public trust that wasn't transparent, or is it damaging more that there's just disagreement?
I would say the transparency because that correlates into disagreement. If you're not transparent, the people that are disagreeing with it, they might have looked at the situation a little differently if they had all the information and it was a very transparent process instead of trying to just ram something through behind, constituents' backs or elected officials' backs without giving them information. That transparency would have correlated to it then.
Good point.
And it probably would have been a different outcome. It probably wouldn't be as controversial as it is because I've been able to sway a lot of people's opinions with the information that I've brought to light.
Very good point. So, as mayor now, what does success look like over the next 2 years for Stewart?
Success for me is hopefully educating people and inspiring them to be more involved and just moving in a positive direction and hopefully keeping growth at bay.
And that's kind of my next question here. How do you keep Stewart's character while facing development pressure?
You're looking at zoning and stuff. When someone buys a parcel and if it's zoned commercial, the property rights don't mean you can get a guaranteed zoning change from commercial to multifamily. And that's I see that as a news headline right now, by the way. So before it was we needed all this residential development. Now we have it. Now they're pushing we need all this industrial development. It's very comical.
So,
And there's certain key players involved, but
right. There are. Can you update us? You just reminded me, speaking of all of this, There's a lawsuit with the parcel on US 1 that they want to turn into a hotel. It's currently the old funeral home where that's
Uh,
at.
that one that one will come back in again for presentation.
And what's the issue there so folks understand this clearly?
Don't wanna misquote it, but
As you can
let's
tell,
see.
Sean and nobody knows what questions I'm going to ask when we do these
Yeah,
interviews. So,
it's let's see. Let me open up the opinion, and I'll tell you. I wanna say because it didn't state the reason on the resolution. That was the only reason why, by the way. It was discussed, but it didn't state it in the actual paperwork that was filed with the city.
okay.
So, they're entitled to their due process.
So, again, folks, it pays to do your research and not just listen to the narrative that's put out there.
Yeah. And during that process, by the way, I'd like to talk about one thing that I personally brought to light in the city of Stuart. So with our zoning designation map, you couldn't carve out certain zoning designations. Instead, you looked at an entire map that was color coded, but you couldn't s- uh, separate them. So that was an implementation that I made to the development department. So now you can carve out any zoning because I pointed this out when it came to urban waterfront property that there is absolutely urban waterfront property in the city that does not or is not adjacent to water.
Fascinating. I
And
remember that.
I asked staff, I asked staff during the meeting, and I was told, no, there's no other urban waterfront that doesn't touch water. And I think I called out like 5 or 6 parcels,
And then, oops, there is. I remember that meeting.
and then boom, they made the changes after. And I've done, like I said, I've done some good things. I think for the city, and yeah, I'm
Transparency is
happy.
always good, and you've been very open, and like I said, refreshing. It's very, very refreshing. You're not Sean, my impression, I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. My impression is you just do what you feel is right. You're gonna say what's on your mind, and if it costs you an election, so be it. You stay true to yourself.
Yeah,
You're not worried
exactly.
about being
I was
reelected.
elected to do a job. I'm a temporary employee. Every 4 years, I'm on the chopping block. If the voters want me gone in 2028, I would bow out in 2028 and I would say, hey, I did a great job for the 4 year tenure I was here. If someone can do a better job, hats off to them. I'll support them in their campaign. But until then, I haven't seen it. And I embrace challengers anyway. If someone does decide to run against me and call me out for being immature or not professional, which by the way, sometimes I do wear shorts and a leg compression to meetings because I had knee surgery. It hurts sometimes sitting in that chair with pants on. If that makes me unprofessional and immature, well, I'll gladly wear that title.
So be it. So what issue do you think residents are
Hmm.
most worried about that government isn't paying enough attention to?
Such a loaded question because it's like a tidal wave, right? You have your ups and downs. So you're going to have controversial issues, you're going to address them, and then something else is going to pop up. I think there's sometimes misinformation, like with the sound ordinance that happened with a business in East Stewart. And then you had a local music venue pick up on it saying that we were targeting them, trying to close them down, which was not accurate. And I called the owner up and, we've always gotten along. We've always had our differences and stuff, but that transparency comes back into play. And I'm going to call a spade a spade. So stuff like that is frustrating at times, and there's been times where I contemplate if I should correct the record or not. It depends.
And what is one thing residents misunderstand about local government?
Maybe on how it works and operates. Take, for example, I'm going to give you this is a very good and simple one. Take East Ocean Boulevard all the way into Sewell's Point. There's 3 municipalities, 3 organizations that have access to that road. The city owns the road to Georgia Avenue. The county takes it over to Monterey Road, and then the state of Florida takes it over the rest of the way. That alone right there is a very easy one to follow.
Absolutely. It's interesting for sure. And that's why part of it's called Jimmy Buffett Highway, right?
Yeah. So we see stuff like, yeah, you see stuff like that, whether or not you agree with it or not. These are just issues that I see, I
Right.
guess.
And point out. What's the biggest thing happening behind the scenes in Stewart that residents should be paying attention to right now?
Behind the scenes. I don't know. There's not a whole lot, I don't think, happening behind the scenes. We're just chugging along, and I'm pushing for transparency at City Hall.
And do you think the public gets the full story from local government? Speaking of transparency?
They're gonna get it from me. I know they're not gonna get it from some people up there, but if you want it, I'm a phone call away, which, by the way, my number is 772-247-4772. Call me if you think I'm doing a good job. Call me if you think I'm doing a bad job. I have no problem getting called out. You can knock on my door if you'd like. A lot of people know where I live when they were threatening to run Brightline trains into my house. So everyone's well aware of where I'm at. I'm usually out in the public, walking. Feel free to honk at me. You want to say nice things. You want to say not so nice things. I take it all in stride.
All right. So, as we know, former Mayor Chris Collins stepped down to run for the county commission. What's happening with his seat?
So I'm 25% of the city now instead of 20% because we only got four. But my opinion is it should be somebody that is a advisory board member currently, a prior advisory board member, prior elected official, maybe somebody that's predominant in the community. Can fill the role for 3 months. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone that wants to continually do it, but if they could get us through maybe the budget stuff, if they're good with that, that would be nice. And that's my perspective on it. And I've had a couple people reach out to me about the position, but that's my thought process moving forward.
When do you think that'll be filled?
Maybe it could be ratified at the next meeting, if or maybe the first meeting in June. I don't think it's worth spending $30,000 on taxpayer money to hold a special election. That's just a waste of money.
Agree. We have an election in August, so that would
Yeah.
definitely be silly. But in the meantime, it could potentially be gridlock if it's 2-2 votes, potentially.
Yeah, and I heard that from Keith Burbank at TC Palm, and it's funny because like everyone always thinks that I sided with Chris and Laura, and I'm at every meeting. I think I might have missed one, maybe two. That's not the case. And you can ask Chris and Laura, you can ask any elected official. Sometimes I even side with Campbell Rich. I side with anyone that has common sense on decision making and they're trying to represent an agenda item appropriately and accurately. And I try to keep my personal opinions and personal views out of governing as an elected official.
And that's very true. You have not always voted the same block for sure. So just on a lot of the big issues, but I do remember votes where you were opposing. So
Oh, yeah.
all right, I've got one last question for you, Mayor.
Ask away.
At the end of the day, should elected officials be trusted more for asking difficult questions or for going along quietly?
I think I'm trusted more by asking questions. I think I'm trusted more by bringing things to the open. I don't believe in closed door discussions on controversial issues because it goes back to I'm one person. I got one brain. So when you have other people looking at something, I think it's amazing because that's true public participation.
Well, Mayor Sean Reed, it has been a real pleasure to sit down and speak with you here this morning. And, you stepped into your seat, first time ever elected, into one of the most, controversial times. And that was again with the darn Brightline, which is still controversial to this day. And it has been since 2014, to be honest with you. So I'm sure it's been an amazing 2 years so far and appreciate your service, your openness and candidness with these interviews.
Yeah. When I first got there, I was like, what the heck did I just sign up for? I was like, because by the way, for the record, my family is not involved. My friends are not involved. Like, it's not like that. Yes, I have like friends or family that will call me and ask me a question and stuff sometimes, but I don't talk about it because the easiest way to put it, Casey, the only one that's really going to truly understand what we go through is somebody that has been an elected official or is an elected official. I understand the public and I know you stay very much involved and there's some people in the community that stay very involved and you understand it and you can interpret it when I explain it to you. But as far as the psychological and the social and emotional emotions that follow along with this position, you either let it beat you down or you rise up for the people. And I feel as if I've risen for the people and I got thick skin and I don't know. I'm a one-man band when it comes to a lot of this stuff.
Yes, you are. And Mayor Reed, you've just said a lot there, and I appreciate it deeply. I know it's got to be really tough for elected officials to sit up there in that dais and get their head beat in sometimes. And I've seen some of them just lash out because they're just so frustrated. But you have
Oh, yeah.
always maintained your cool, and that's tough to do, but also admirable.
So I'll give you one statement my mom always told me. She said, would you rather get yelled at for doing what's wrong or getting yelled at still for doing what's right? So for me, it's always been an easy decision. I'd rather do what's right with my moral compass, whether or not I'm going to get yelled at. I don't want to do wrong and still get yelled at. That hurts worse.
Perfect note to end on, folks. Don't forget, follow the KC Ingram Show on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube for more real talk you won't hear anywhere else. I'm KC Ingram. Stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Mayor Reed.
You're welcome. See you guys.
There we go.